Hello everyone. By now, most people roughly understand Iran's drone attacks. They are mostly cheap drones, and yet the United States seems to be struggling against them. But the game they are playing in the sky is now being played in the sea as well. Soon we will start hearing in the media about Iranian boats the same way we heard about the Shahid drones. Recently you might have heard that the United States destroyed about 11 Iranian vessels that came to plant mines in the Strait of Hormuz. But those were not actually large Iranian ships, they were mostly boats. What kind of boats? Many of them have no crew at all. In other words, they can be described as drone boats. These boats move at very high speed without people on board. There are different categories. Some have operators, maybe 2 or 3 people, who are willing to risk their lives while guiding the boat toward ships or using them to plant mines. These are the kinds of boats the United States destroyed. But even if they destroy not 10 but 100 of them, Iran can still block the Strait of Hormuz very cheaply. That's what we are seeing now. Through the Strait of Hormuz, oil tankers travel to countries like India. In a way, India's diplomacy can be called successful since some shipments still arrive. But the strait is effectively blocked. How is Iran managing this? What the United States originally expected was a traditional naval war. Large ships coming in, a big naval battle happening, and Iran being defeated easily so that the Strait of Hormuz would never be blocked. But just like Iran uses drones in the air, they are now applying the same strategy at sea. On one side there are billion-dollar ships and aircraft carriers, and on the other side Iran uses extremely cheap speedboats. Just like Shahid drones are produced cheaply, these boats are also being produced cheaply. The United States never expected Iran could block the Strait of Hormuz like this.
What the United States had promised was simple. Their warships would escort oil tankers safely through the strait. But not even one tanker has been escorted safely like that. Why hasn't the United States done it? Because they know it could become embarrassing if something goes wrong. Another issue is that oil tankers themselves are afraid to go through the Strait of Hormuz. The main reason is insurance. Insurance companies have said that if ships go through such a risky route and something happens, they will not provide insurance. That is why the United States intervened and announced a plan worth about $20 billion to insure the insurers, basically guaranteeing coverage if losses occur. Just think how huge $20 billion is. This is how Iran is managing to fight the war at very low cost. When Russia invaded Ukraine, many people thought Russia would easily win. But today we see Russia facing serious challenges. Ukraine hasn't completely won, but it has managed to make Russia struggle. Similarly, Iran has suffered heavy damage from Israeli bombing and infrastructure destruction. But their opponents are not comfortable either. Iran is causing even bigger problems for the United States. Earlier, I mentioned that many of the consequences are affecting the GCC countries. Some of them may even start distancing themselves from the United States. Even the petrodollar system could weaken. The United States is now in a difficult position. Missile defense systems like THAAD and Patriot that were deployed in South Korea to counter North Korea are being moved to the Gulf region. Why? Because the Gulf countries used up huge numbers of interceptor missiles trying to shoot down Iran's cheap drones. To destroy a drone that costs maybe a few $1,000s, they sometimes fire interceptor missiles costing 30 to 40 crore rupees each, sometimes even 2 missiles per drone in case one misses. THAAD interceptor against ballistic missiles can cost around 250 crore rupees. We used to think the United States could produce these weapons endlessly. But now we realize production takes months and stocks are limited. That's why they had to move systems from South Korea. This also creates risks for South Korea. If Kim Jong-un decides to attack while defenses are reduced, it could become easier for North Korea. Another issue is that American failures are not widely discussed in global media. Many media platforms are American companies, so news unfavorable to the United States often receives less attention. For example, Iran reportedly destroyed a radar system in Qatar worth billions of dollars using drones. Meanwhile, Iran's airspace is largely open, meaning Israel or the United States could strike targets there if they wanted. Yet Iran still manages to hit strategic targets in return. This suggests that countries like Russia, China, and North Korea may be indirectly supporting Iran. Russia in particular may be helping with targeting and strategy. After all, NATO countries supplied weapons to Ukraine against Russia, so Russia may now be responding by supporting Iran. One major miscalculation by the United States was acting quickly after Israel initiated strikes. Israel attacked soon after Ali Khamenei appeared publicly after years in hiding. Israel asked the United States to follow, and the United States joined. Some analysts say even Mossad miscalculated the situation. Another interesting point is that NATO and European Union countries are not strongly supporting the United States in this conflict. Many European nations seem reluctant after experiences like the Ukraine war, where they faced energy crises after stopping Russian oil. Countries like France and Germany appear more cautious now. Meanwhile, Israel fears that if Iran eventually develops nuclear weapons, Israel could face an existential threat. That's why Israel is determined to confront Iran. But the United States is worried about something else. If Gulf countries abandon the petrodollar system and move away from the dollar, it could weaken the global dominance of the US dollar. In summary, Iran is being heavily damaged but is still managing to hurt its opponents economically and strategically. For countries like India, especially for people in Kerala, this situation is worrying. Millions of Malayali expatriates work in Gulf countries, and remittances from there helped Kerala's economy grow since the 1970s. If Gulf economies destabilize, it could affect many families. So the real question now is, if this war continues for a long time, what will happen to the world's future? That's something everyone should think about.